This is Countdown to Economic Collapse, January 8th, 2012. I'm David John Sponheim, running for president in 2012 for America's Third Party. I want to cut to the chase. Right now we've got lots of banks that are making tons and tons of money, but they're starting to feel the pinch. Even Goldman Sachs is estimating that 2011 earnings will be half of what 2010 was. But we're also seeing a conspiracy of sorts in the banking sector. You know, back in 1947, there were lawsuits, antitrust lawsuits, against the top 17 major banks and investment firms in America. Unfortunately, in 1953, most of those lawsuits were thrown out of court by a federal judge. But the fact remains that 17 investment banks are the top leaders and they run our country's banking community. They are colluding. They are setting the prices for initial public offerings, much like Groupon and Zynga are asking for. They are controlling the very pulse of our economy, and we continue to give them free money, bailout money. The Federal Reserve gives them low-interest loans as low as 0.34% interest. That's right, less than 1% interest. They get the money and they run with it, and oftentimes they invest overseas. So over the past 50 years, we've seen our nation slowly decline as a world leader as a result of the banks that are greedy and sucking money right out of our national budget, which is a big problem because in the long run, America loses. The banks win, and our country doesn't build jobs. Now, you've seen the two-party system essentially do the same thing every single election period. They come up with promises and then they don't deliver on them. The American people are so frustrated with Congress that Congress has a 10% approval rating at best. And they're very frustrated with this president as well, who doesn't seem to be able to rally our nation to a point where economic recovery digs in and we gain traction. The problem is Barack Obama doesn't have any out-of-the-box ideas to create jobs. Even he himself has stated, oh, make no mistake about it. Let's be clear. The government is not responsible for creating jobs. Well, I'm sorry, but the government is responsible for stimulating the economy and creating the kind of innovations that will lead to exports and manufacturing and production increases and jobs, obviously. This recent legislation for SOPA, Stop Online Piracy Act, is absurd. It's actually written in a way that shows that the government doesn't understand how the internet works. Countless servers are objecting, claiming that there's no way they're going to be able to patrol copyright law infringement at the personal level. They're not going to be able to monitor everybody that has server space on their server. And many companies are wondering, is government that out of touch with reality that they think they can enforce something like this that's going to cost business tons of money? The answer is yes. The government is so far out of reality that they continue to pass legislation that leads to nothing but problems. In fact, recently, the past week, Barack Obama signed NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, which gives this country the ability to imprison and arrest anyone they accuse of a war crime. Anybody they can bring in, haul in, and not even give a trial, not even give them the writ of habeas corpus, the right to face their accuser, nothing. And that was passed right before your very eyes, ladies and gentlemen. It was passed secretly, behind closed doors. It goes under the heading of H.R. 1540. But it also is a very broad, sweeping piece of legislation that will ultimately affect all of us long term, which, by the way, authorizes $662 billion to the U.S. military. 1 week later, he says we're going to downsize the military. And guess where he's going to cut it? In salaries. He's going to downsize as many as 500,000 people in the U.S. military, shrinking the cost of our U.S. military by $487 billion over 10 years. Well, that's not where you need to cut salaries. We don't need to take people who are families who've dedicated their lives to fighting the Iraq and Afghanistan war and lower their salaries or fire them outright. That's a big mistake. I would never downsize the military force that we have today. We need at least that many people in our armed forces to protect our nation. I would, however, start cutting massive contracts to big military industrial contractors who are simply siphoning money out of the budget. Now, awarding $662 billion to the military companies all around the country is not a big plus for Barack Obama. It is in their eyes, but for us, as citizens, it's going to weaken our nation, draw money out of our budget and out of the future money that we owe, and ultimately bring us to the point where we're going bankrupt. Well, our nation technically is going bankrupt. And it's just a matter of time before the American people realize that their local municipalities are bankrupt, that our states are bankrupt. And if we don't realize that before the 2012 election and get a new leader to lead this nation, I'm afraid we're going to head right into that hole that is obviously awaiting us. That infinite black hole where all the money is thrown and all the debt is acquired. We are headed toward that hole right now. Now, if you're one of the many lemmings in the two-party system that just continually believe that we've got to keep voting two parties or we'll split the vote, it's time to split the vote. It's time to look at a different direction for our country, because what we have today is not working. We are not seeing the budget cuts necessary to keep our nation fiscally sound. We are not seeing the kind of decisions around the globe that encourage investment and trade with this nation. We are seeing a bumbling idiot lead us nowhere in the White House. And I'm telling you, if we continue to let this happen, you have only yourself to blame for what's to come. Now, if you're as concerned as I am about the course our country is taking, you need to step up and realize that the two-party system isn't just going to go away on its own. We have to actively galvanize support among non-voters and voters to realize that the two parties have essentially failed us, that they've been unable to regulate and control the power of big, huge firms that are forming monopolies. The most recent positive thing that has happened in our nation is the Justice Department broke up the AT&T merger with T-Mobile, Deutsche Holdings. They have stopped that merger. That merger was going to be financed by Chase Morgan for the tune of $39 billion. Luckily, it wasn't. And luckily, it didn't go through. But you can see where they want to constantly make money on everybody's investments. Your cell phone bill would have gone up as a result of it. And I think that they should step up and pursue more cases of antitrust against banks that have colluded to control markets, preventing initial public offerings from being fairly priced out so that our technology sector can grow properly. They're expecting $1 trillion in worldwide investment in small electronic devices. The possibility that growth occurs in technology is nothing new to America. The question is, will it get out of control with profit grabbing? And will it continually rape the customer's pocketbook when it comes down to their monthly service fees and the cost of their phones? We're hoping that this transition to the new technology and the small devices that are out there will open up the possibility for more democracy. Will open up the chance for all of us to organize on the internet and stop the powerful, single-minded nature of the two-party system. So far, you've got a president who's stonewalled reveals of his guest list. Right now, Judicial Review wants to see the White House guest list, and Barack Obama won't present it, which makes one wonder, what is really going on there? Well, apparently the coal companies, the oil companies, are sitting very close to Barack Obama, making sure that he continues to lube their pocketbooks, making sure that they get all kinds of lucrative deals where they can ship oil from overseas into our country, making us ever more dependent on outside sources of oil and energy. We aren't making a transition to renewable energy like we expected. Companies like Solyndra, which donated a lot of money to Barack Obama, went under. 5 solar companies are teetering on bankruptcy right now, and they're asking for some support, but Barack Obama isn't there to get behind them. And he's not there with new ideas to stimulate mass production of solar panels so that we can lower the cost, compete with China, and gain the upper hand on our own infrastructure and our own energy independence. So all of this is leading to a lot of concern overall in the general stability of our nation. And that's created a crisis in some ways in the investment community. Stock volumes are down, trading is down, but overall, we're all looking at what's going to happen at the euro. The euro is sliding and continues to face huge obstacles that could take it down. I'm not trying to strike fear in your heart. I'm merely trying to wake you up to the reality that we have to get busy right now and create this third party. Otherwise, our nation's going to slip right out of control and into the hands of the big multinational corporate owners of the world and the big banks that obviously are getting free money from the Federal Reserve. I hope you're all ready for what's to come, because it's not pretty. I'm David John Sponheim for America's Third Party, and I support this message.
Check us out at americasthirdparty.com.
ATP, you and me.